Welcome, Scoop World Order. It is a special Saturday night show. Some big stuff popping off. Lorenzo Styles Jr., Jordan Lytle, surprise commitment tonight. NFL draft just ended. Some Buckeyes slipped a little bit. Gonna talk about all that. Take your questions. Break down some film. So we're gonna get into this thing because there's a lot of stuff to cover, and we only got about an hour to go. So appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Leave us a like. Shout out where you're from in the comments. Those really help spike the video, so we appreciate you guys doing that. It's fun seeing where you guys are from. Also, subscribe. That's so huge for us. And if you enjoy these live shows, click the bell. Get the alert when we go live. You'll never miss a show. Again, we love the feedback. We love the question and answer. But yeah, we're going to get right into this thing because what a red hot show. So I'm bringing in Nevada, Buck, Nevada. Lorenzo Styles, we had that a week ago, is now officially an Ohio State Buckeye, committed to Ryan Day today, announced it a short while ago. And also we got a very surprise commitment from a guy that I think is extremely underrated, Jordan Lyle. I talked to some of our South Florida Express friends down there. They say he's a superstar. So I put more credence into that than anything. They say this kid is super legit. He's from St. Thomas Aquinas, home of Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa. So really prolific school, one of the best colleges, or excuse me, high schools in all of the country. Just a powerhouse. But your thoughts on this this Saturday bonanza? I thought we were going to be talking about the NFL draft, and it's turned into a really nice night of recruiting gets for Ohio State.
Well, first of all, yeah, great day for Ohio State. Great day if you're a gambler. We just hit our big hammer bet on UFC tonight. So if you're not on Buckeye Scoop, and you should just subscribe just to get the bets, because we just literally loaded the chamber on one a big bet. So I'm very excited about that. Ohio State has kind of hit the jackpot as well. Tony Alford has been criticized, and I've been one of the ones that's criticized him for what I would consider recruiting sometimes that has been substandard and missing. Not bringing in running backs in, not anticipating moves or NIL difficulties with running backs. But you got to give them credit when I like to give guys credit when it's due. And this is a big day for Tony Alford because this is a big get. This is a really good player. Now, you always are a little skeptical, Hippo, about these Florida kids and can you keep them to until signing day?
Yeah.
But my information is that this isn't that kind of kid, and that this is this one should go to the good guys in the right column, and this isn't just an opening bid. So, good day for the Buckeyes. Obviously, the Lorenzo Styles Jr. Information we've had for a while, so I think we spoil you guys by breaking it before it happens. But excited about that one as well. So, good news abounding for Ohio State fans. Just a great day, and the draft was a little disappointing in terms of where some of the guys went, but just the fact that they all went, they got drafted, they're doing their thing. And I think they're all in great spots. The fact that the Browns took back-to-back offensive linemen in DeWand and Luke Whippler just makes it great. It just shows me that the Browns are changing, that maybe there is a new day for the Browns, because the Browns went years between. I think they went like from Craig Powell all the way to Denzel Ward. They went like 25 years without drafting a Buckeye, and now they draft Buckeye linemen back-to-back. So great day all the way around, and very, very excited.
They also signed Ronnie Hickman as an undrafted free agent and Tanner McAllister as an undrafted free agent as the roster is stretched to 90. So they added 4 Browns today, 4 Buckeyes to the Browns today. So, hey, it's better than nothing because that's what it was for about 20 straight years, like you mentioned. I'm going to get into this film. Nevada, how shocked were you when this popped tonight? I mean, I didn't see this one coming at all. I don't think anybody did. I mean, this isn't one where everybody had the edits done and the interviews taped. Like, there's no taped commitment interview with this kid. How surprised when you saw this come across the wire?
I was surprised, and I'm not surprised by a lot. And I'm talking about surprise in terms of like really not seeing it at all. Normally, you've heard something, you've picked up something. But this one for me was completely surprising, and this is a pleasant one because this is a terrific kid. And the funny thing is, like I said, as soon as I started reaching out to my South Florida people, they're like, man, this is a good kid for the Buckeyes. This is a really solid kid. So, as you mentioned, St. Thomas Aquinas kid. And they think he's solid to the Buckeyes. I think he'll be solid all the way to the finish line, which makes it that much more excited. But this is a good one.
Yeah, it's interesting because we just took obviously James Peoples was kind of the bell cow. Sam Williams Dixon's the local kid that we just took. So now we have 3 running backs committed Um, be interesting to see if they all stick or how that works out. Honestly, I don't care because this room is real top heavy, and after this year, you're losing Trey, you're losing Mayan. There could be a transfer, so I mean, there's going to be a lot of room at the end after this season. But I love the film. I love the bursts. I love seeing these uniforms because like St. Thomas Aquinas Raiders. I mean, it's like I remember watching Joey his senior year when Nicky was a freshman. I think they played Don Bosco or one of those. It was like one of those ESPN nationally televised games, and like Nicky was like dominant as a freshman, and Joey he's a monster. But like I couldn't believe how good Nicky was as a little freshman. They're playing like nose guard. It was hilarious. But I think when you get kids from programs like this, they're well coached. I mean, you can just watch their schematics and you can tell by the blocking and by the technical stuff that these guys are very well coached and they're very good and they play very high level football. So I'm excited. I mean, because he's running over some really good teams here. These guys go deep in the playoffs. These guys have won the state championship a ton in Florida. So this is really big, big boy football. Here he is. These are my favorite when they show these guys dropping the shoulder here. He doesn't try to sidestep him, lowers the boom on the guy, punishes the guy, kind of flips him over. So I love that. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage the recruits going forward. I think that in modern times with college football, I think kids are a lot more apt to come with another star back because they're all very cognizant of not of the wear and tear aspect of college football, and nobody wants to be like the super bell cow anymore. Nobody wants to be the guy that gets 30 carries and gets beat to crap before they hit the league. They want to have some tread left on the tires, and I think that that's something that it's just a sign of the times now. These guys, they like to have a running mate to go with them, and I think these guys are good complements for each other. But I'm excited about the kid. Like I said, it's kind of out of the blue. Like I said, I talked to my guy in South Florida. He was shocked. He's like, "Oh, you committed?" I was like, "Yeah, you didn't know?" And he's like, "No, we heard rumors, but Alabama had offered this kid. I mean, this guy's got real offers. He's got Bama, Penn State. Not sure if he had Georgia, Auburn, Florida. He had all the Florida schools, obviously, but." When you beat Bama anytime, it's a cause for celebration. And, this kid's got wheels, man. Like I said, it's a good day. It's good for Tony Alford to have. I mean, last year we didn't have any. We lost our boy Fletcher at the final whistle to Miami because of an NIL deal. But, getting three in the bag early is, I guess, good. I mean, we haven't even hit summer camp season yet. We've got 3 committed running backs. So I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of Ohio State. And if anybody knows of a time we've had 3 running backs committed, please put that in the chat because I don't think I've ever seen that before. But I'm good with it. Whatever it takes to get this room restocked. Because like I said, there's going to be a big transition when we lose. Trey's going to go pro. Mine's going to be going pro. There's going to be a lot of room at the end. So, but yeah, what do you think so far? We've watched about 5 minutes of film so far. What do you think of his film so far, Nevada?
Well, I'd seen him before, and it was funny because when I'd seen it before, I was thinking, wow, this kid looks good, but he'll look more older than Ohio State. But no, he's got terrific balance. He's got terrific burst. Catches the ball well out of the backfield, which I really like. I always like those guys that are those hand catchers out of the backfield. And this level of competition is super high. So he's not playing against little kids in Missouri or South Dakota or something like that. So no, I mean, there's lots to like about him. He's everything you want in a running back, and he's just he's tall, he's angular, he kind of gets the leverage really good going on there, and he'll run inside or outside, and I like that as well because you need to be able to do that in the Big Ten, and he looks like a guy that I mean, to me, he looks like Eddie George and running back there, but or I guess you could pick anyone that you could call him Zeke, you could call him Eddie or whatever. But I really like him. I really like the way he runs, and I think he's going to look great in scarlet and gray.
I think he looks like Zeke, honestly. I mean, because Zeke, especially early in his career, he was really physical. He was fast. He wasn't scared to drop the shoulder. Could catch the ball. Again, I love running backs that can catch the ball in the backfield. I think it's just something that we don't really do enough at Ohio State. Our receivers they get so open and they're so prolific, but I think it's just so hard to defend in modern football when you have a guy that can catch the ball in space. But I think he looks like Zeke. Like he looks like 2013, 2014 Zeke. The way he runs, the way he runs forward, the way he bends. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just the 21 in the blue and it looks like the Cowboys Zeke, but I mean he runs hard, and I love guys that run hard. They're not scared. And again, he runs away from guys too, but like this looks like Zeke, catching out of the backfield. Again, it feels like that. I don't know if he's as explosive as Zeke. Like again, I don't know his track times. Like Ezekiel was an unbelievable hurdler in high school, but yeah, I love watching this kid's tape. It's been good. Yeah, I had a linebacker ready to break down and some other stuff to break down, but we get him in the fold. Low Styles jumps in the boat, which we had a week ago. Welcome to the squad, Low Styles Jr. So it's a good night for the Buckeyes tonight. It'd be interesting to see, some of these visits are wrapping up with the portal kids. Obviously, they have the tackle in from San Diego State. They've got Tylen Malone from Ole Miss. Obviously, Low Styles committed. So I think that they're all kind of in different little silos because of their travel schedules. So obviously, Lorenzo Styles Jr. is from Pickerington, so it's a little different than being from San Diego or being from Mississippi. As in, they probably just showed up for a day, ate a couple steaks, and went home, and that was that. So, but yeah, like I said, this is a good get. And again, I love the South Florida thing because Ennis and JJ, they all know each other, and he doesn't play for South Florida Express just because he's a tailback, and they don't really take running backs. But this is good. I love when they put the clips of the guys blocking. So again, this cements the Zeke comparison because this is some stuff we used to do with Zeke back when we used to run the quarterback more. But this is impressive because it's not the fact that we're ever going to run the quarterback the way that we did with Urban, but you can see if a guy's selfless by how he blocks. Because a lot of these guys, they're allergic to blocking, and this is why St. Thomas is one of the best programs in the country because they put clips of him pass blocking on the highlight film. So again, this is something you got a linebacker mugged up in the B gap, and you just got to see how physical is the guy. You got to get steamrolled, and like literally, this technique is flawless. I mean, rolls his hips, he's low, and he just stops the guy. So I mean, that's something that you're Tony Alford, like you love that because he's not starting from ground zero as a pass blocker, which is great. And this is a little quick run block, a 2 tailback set, and I don't know. I love when you see some of the selfless stuff instead of just being touchdown run after touchdown run. Like he's lead blocking here, which again you don't see this very often from a guy who's an Alabama, Ohio State type offer. But when you see this lead play and you see him flatten a defensive end, or this might be a linebacker. It looks like it's a 3-4. Like it looks like a 3. Yeah, this is an outside linebacker, but it's still probably a bigger guy than him. And he puts him right in the dirt, which is great. Again, that's just something that, it proves he's selfless. He's a tough guy. Again, another clip of him pass blocking. So I love it. Again, I stick to the Zeke comparison. I don't know if he's as top end fast as Zeke, but he's got Zeke's mentality, which is probably even more important than just your top end speed with his physicality and his pass blocking. So Zeke was a tremendous blocker, tremendous pass blocker, and tremendous. I mean, again, it's a different era we don't run the quarterback as much, but we used to run the quarterback lead with Zeke out front and he'd kill guys. So really good stuff. I'm excited about that. So We've talked about Lorenzo Styles Jr. a lot. I'm excited to see what he can bring at corner. I think it invigorates Sonny a little bit to have his brother there. I think it's cool to have the family all together now. So congratulations to the Styles crew. That'll be great. Let's get into the draft a little bit, Nevada. Nevada, what were your takes from today? Obviously, DeJuan slipped, Luke Whippler slipped, Ronnie declared early and was not drafted. What are your takes from the 3 days that we've watched with Ohio State and the NFL draft in general?
What I think fans have to remember is that for some kids, like I'll see posts and I'll be like, oh, this kid made a mistake by going this, and it's like some kids just want to go. They just want to go, and they're just ready to go. And for whatever reason, they just don't want to be in college anymore. So I think people they're looking at these things the wrong way. They're looking at it through their own lens or through the lens of as a fan of Ohio State football. But for some of these kids, like a Luke Whippler, he was ready to go halfway through the year. You and I had both heard he's leaving, and I think whether he was drafted in the 3rd round or the 4th round or the 6th round, it didn't really matter to him. He was going to go. He believes in himself. He believes he's going to get a job, earn a job on a roster, keep a job, get a second contract, make money, and do his thing. But he was just ready to move on. And I do. I don't want to dwell on this, but I do want to talk about this a little bit. This is 7 offensive linemen drafted from Ohio State in the past 3 years. Unprecedented. And we've talked about this, but again, I want to, part of our objectives in these podcasts is to make people smarter, a little bit more clear thinking as fans so that you guys can understand what's going on. On the offensive line, you don't play a lot of guys. And what our question marks on the offensive line right now are not question marks of talent, they're question marks of experience and game time because you only play 5 or 6 guys a season, maybe 7. And right now, when 3 guys go early off the thing, you're basically left with a room of guys that, although they're highly regarded, I mean, uh, we're talking about Fitzpatrick and Tegra and Zen. I mean, Zen was a top 300 guy. Fitzpatrick was a top 200 guy. Tegra was a top 100 guy. All high 4-stars, but they just haven't played yet. So we just haven't seen them. So while we have questions about the offensive line, it's not that we have like this huge open. Oh, we have no talent in the offensive line. We just haven't seen them play yet. So everybody just needs to take a chill pill and relax and kind of step back and see what's going to happen in terms of what's going to go on, and we're going to be fine. This is not DEFCON 3. But the reason that we're even in this situation at all is because you had 3 guys declare early to go to the draft. And people say, oh, that was so easy to anticipate. No, nobody could have ever anticipated that because it's never happened in the history of Ohio State football. It's never happened in the history of any team at college football to have 3 guys go early off the offensive line. So I just think for Ohio State fans, think of the challenges that we have on the offensive line to be ones of experience, not that we don't have talented guys in the room, not that we're not going to be able to field a capable offensive line in the fall. But I think that nothing could be further from the truth. So end of rant.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I'm a lot more worried about our secondary. I mean, we had 2 starters that didn't even get drafted from our secondary last year. And I know that we've added some guys like Davidson Igbinosin and some guys that could help us out, but like on the offensive line, do we have to improve? Of course, but can we help the guys that are young tackles? Yeah, absolutely. It's no different than we're gonna have to help Kyle McCord, a lot more than we helped CJ Stroud. Like you didn't really have to help Paris last year at all because he's such a phenomenal pass blocker, but like CJ Stroud didn't need as much help with easy throws and more game management type play calls, whereas Kyle McCord is going to need that. So Josh Fryer, and if it's Zen, if it's Tigra, if it's Josh Simmons from San Diego State, if it's George Fitzpatrick, if it's Donnie Jackson, whoever the other tackle is, I mean, help the guy out. Again, I've said it 8 million times. You guys are sick of me saying it. Donnie Jackson should start at left tackle, lock that side down, and then put Josh at right tackle. And then it just kind of solidifies everything. But for whatever reason, they want to keep Donnie at left guard. I get it. He's a prototypical NFL guard. He's a 6'4.5" guy. Literally, I saw him at the Foundation, and we're literally the exact same height. But he's got great feet. He played tackle his entire career in high school. Played it last spring, so he can do it. But it's just up to Justin Fry if that's what he wants to do or not. But I think that these guys will be fine. You can help these guys out with mixing up the pass protections. It's like in the National Football League when a superstar tackle blows an ACL, like they don't cancel the season. You got to put in a guy from the practice squad who's probably never played in the NFL or he's barely played or whatever, and you still got to go play the games on Sunday. So it's no different when you lose Paris Johnson and Dewan to these guys are all on scholarship too. These guys all get checks just like Paris and Dewan did. So it's time for them to start earning them. So again, will there be growing pains? Of course, but I'm more worried about quarterback and DB than I'd ever be about the line at this point. And because again, I think our skill is so good that it'll kind of buoy the offensive line. Like in 04, when we weren't good on the O line in the middle of the year, everything changed when we put in Troy Smith. We played Gonzo, we played Ted Gilmore, and magically, we were way better on the O line because our skill guys were so good because they would get open, catch the ball, and make plays, and they'd get open quicker than the guys that were playing previous to them. So with Marvin and Emeka, nobody can cover those two. Then you have Cade, then you have Trey, then you have Mayan. Again, you see teams that have okay offensive lines. Like the Cincinnati Bengals this year, they went up to Buffalo with a bunch of guys that were beat up, and they had to start Jackson Carmen at left tackle instead of Jonah Williams, who's their first round pick, who was their franchise left tackle, and they went up there and won, with a bunch of guys that hadn't played a lot. And how are you ever going to block Buffalo in Buffalo with all the noise? And you know what? With good coaching and with great play calling, you can get it done. So again, it's going to come down to Ryan Day and Brian Hartline coming up with, there are schemes where you can protect these offensive line a little bit. Not everything's created equal in pass protection. You can move the pocket, you can run nakeds, you can run play action. There's a million things you can do to help these guys. And there's stuff you can do to hurt them, And again, when you're playing against Indiana to start and Youngstown State and New Hampshire or whatever the third game is, like, you're not playing Georgia, Bama, and USC like right off the rip, So you got some time to get these guys ready. And honestly, the lineups might change a little bit. If guys are rotating in a little bit, if I'm Justin Fry, I'm rolling a couple of those guys in at right tackle and maybe, one of the guard spots or whatever, and just seeing what's the best mix, maybe even at center. I mean, I don't think center's settled. I think Jacob James is going to come in and really fight for that job, and he could take the job from Carson Hinsman. There's going to be a lot of competition, and honestly, I think that's great. I think competition, it keeps these guys sharp. There's no complacency because, when you show up to camp and you're the second team left tackle behind Dewan or behind Paris, you have no chance of beating him out. Or you're behind Dewan, you have no chance of beating him out. But like when you're behind Tigra or when you're behind George Fitzpatrick or whoever's playing right tackle, Zen Mikulski, that you better bring it. If you bring it that day, you could be bumped up to the first huddle. And those guys all want to be in the first huddle. I don't want to be with the twos. So again, I've lived this. I know the offensive line better than everyone in the media combined times 1,000 because I've played it, I've coached it, I've done the rotations. Like, I know how it works and I know what the mentality is. And honestly, like if I'm Justin Fry, I'm posting all these articles about how terrible the tackles are, how terrible the line's going to be, about how all these guys are recruiting misses. I'm putting those all in the O-line room and showing them to these guys. Like, this is what everybody thinks of you guys. They all think you're going to suck this year. So, it's up to you guys not to suck. And if you have pride, you'll take that seriously and personally. And if you don't, then you're just going to be, a guy that hits the portal and goes off to Duke or wherever, or Eastern Michigan, or, a place that's better suited for you than Ohio State. I've got Lorenzo Salles Jr.'s film running in the background, but what else did you take from the NFL draft, Nevada, other than, our line, a couple of our guys? I don't know. And I really don't know if DeWan and Luke made a mistake. I mean, DeWan was here 4 years, and I think a fifth year would have done him a tremendous amount, but I just think that he didn't do well in the process. He could have done a lot better. Luke, I think obviously could have stayed and gone a little higher than the 6th round. But what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, like I said, I think that guys have got to go when they're ready and when they feel that they're kind of done learning from college. And a lot of the guys that I've talked to about things, I've talked to a lot of them about it. They're like, look, I'd rather just go, if I'm going to go learn and get better, rather go draw a paycheck and learn and get stronger and get better and try to do that at the NFL level. And, there's a certain amount of logic to that as well. So I look at somebody like Noah Brown. Noah Brown leaves early for Ohio State, and I'm thinking that was the least NFL-ready player that I've ever heard of going to the NFL. And what's he in his 10th year or whatever it is in the NFL right now?
Yeah.
So it's like, you never really know with guys in terms of who's going to make the good decision, who's going to make the bad decision. We've talked ad nauseum about how Corey Lindsey, what was it, 5th round draft pick. Nobody was predicting superstardom for Corey. And then, Corey could buy the city of Manhattan Beach now and still have money left over in his checking account. So, I think you just never know with these kids. But I think these things all happen for a reason. And, the good news from an Ohio State fan standpoint is, what it's going to provide us with this year? A lot of experience. We're going to have a lot of guys that are going to get a lot of playing time right now that they wouldn't ordinarily have gotten, and we'll be ready to go. And as you mentioned, the first 3 games of the season are I never like to say cupcakes anytime you're starting a Big Ten game right out of the bat, but easier games. By game 4, you're pretty much kind of into the anything. It's going to be a great challenge to be at Notre Dame. So I think the draft was good for Ohio State. Great calling call for Ryan Day, for the program, for anybody that was worried about our place in the college football world. Definitely not slipping. Definitely hearing a lot of Buckeyes name called in the first round is always a good thing. And Look, they couldn't. They spent most of the draft talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. So anybody that's expecting to see him more than these next 14 games for Ohio State better rethink, because he's going to go, and he's going to go high next year and continue that reputation of Ohio State great wide receivers in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think he'd probably been a top 3 pick this year, top 4 pick. I mean, obviously the quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, but I can't imagine he'd have been below top 5 this year. But I just think with the guys declaring early that people view it as a miss. Obviously Ronnie Hickman not getting drafted, that's obviously the least desirable outcome. But I've just seen guys that come back and something happens, something goes wrong. You can't control everything. For instance, like Jim Tressel sent me this giant folder of all the notes he kept on me over the last 20 years since I was getting recruited. It was a really nice gesture. Had like 50 documents, and it included my NFL draft advisory board grade. And like it said, we advise you that you'd be like a 4th round pick or whatever. And I'm like, and this is '06. So I was deciding to declare early or not. And then I just, I was like, you know what? I just want to stay just because I think that linemen, it never hurts to stay an extra year. So I come back, I get in the best shape of my life. I have the best year of my life. I played great. I went from being second team All Big Ten as a junior to being first team All American as a senior, captain, played great film, gave up 1 sack the entire year to the guy that was the number 3 overall pick in the draft. So, I mean, yeah, I really played at a much higher level than I did in '06, and went to the Senior Bowl and hurt my knee. Like I hurt my knee. I had to get surgery on the Saturday of the Senior Bowl. I was literally getting my knee fixed. So, I wasn't counting on when I went to an All-Star game that I'd get hurt at the All-Star game. And then, you go to the combine, you can't work out. They do all these tests on your knee. Your knee's weak and not strong and arthritic and all this crap. So, I planned on coming back and developing, and I did, but then you suffer a pretty bad injury, and all of a sudden it's like you sink like a rock. You go from being projected as a 4th round pick to going to the 7th round, which, it's not as much about the signing bonus as is the roster security. Because if you're a 4th round pick, the odds of you getting cut are pretty slim. Like you have to be pretty terrible. If you're a 7th round pick, I mean, there's, like an 85% chance you're going to get cut, so it's like, that's kind of where it changes. Cause like DeWand, he's a 4th round pick. He's going to make the team basically no matter what. They gave him a $900,000 signing bonus. So, it's more about the roster security. But if I'd have left, would I have gone in the 4th? I don't know. But it's not like a linear trajectory that if you come back, you lose. And another classic one is Mike Brewster. Mike Brewster was a kid that if he left as a junior, probably would have been a mid-round pick, would have been, had a nice junior year. We beat Arkansas. He decides to stay for his senior year, and obviously Jim Tressel gets fired. We have the miserable year with Luke Fickell where we go 6-7. I don't know. And Mike, I think his junior, he made first team All-American. And so like he decided to stay, and he ends up not getting drafted after starting like 50 games at Ohio State. So, Norwell didn't get drafted. Again, it's not the end of the road if you go low or you don't get drafted, but it doesn't mean if you stay that it's necessarily the correct decision. Like, there's been guys like Michael Jordan who left early. Again, people are like, oh, you should always stay, but there's anything can happen if you stay. I mean, you could easily blow your knee out or something crazy could happen. So again, I never fault the guys for going and getting paid, especially because I think the worst thing a guy can do is think about declaring, not declare, and then wish he had declared. Because I've seen guys that have done that and they end up just being complete cancers because they just complained that they didn't declare, and I could have been a 2nd round pick, I could have been a 3rd round pick if I'd have left. And and again, you don't need those guys around either. You'd rather those guys just clear out and get on with their lives as opposed to hanging out and being cancers. Because I've been around guys, I played with guys that were cancers like that. I've coached guys that were like that. There's names popping in my head. I'm not going to name them, but like I just, you'd rather those guys just move on. Any teams?
No, but Kirk, along that point, let's talk about Hickman for a second. Like Ronnie seemed to check out about halfway through the year and didn't play as well the second half of the season. You know what I'm saying? He was just mentally, it just seemed like he was gone. And so for a kid like that, it's probably best for all concerned to move on. Not that he's not a terrific player, not that he couldn't help us, but if you're not right, because like you said, these stories have a couple of different endings. I think about how excited I was when Wyatt and Sean decided to come back for
Yeah.
Ohio State.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And like and that didn't work out well for those two guys. You know what I'm saying? Had those two guys left when they're, they probably would have done a lot better for themselves had they returned. So selfishly as a fan, I feel bad that I was so excited for them to come back and for them not to be a great story for them. So I just think, we just always have to know that you never really know what the road's going to say. And I think when these kids decide to go and they just mentally decide that it's time for them to go, it's best just to wish them the best. They'll always be Buckeyes. And we move on, and you always look for the blessing. The blessing is that the guys behind him now get a chance to play, and that just makes us more game ready for 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, I stayed at the team hotel after that Alabama game, which was why it ended up being Wyatt's last game as a Buckeye. And, he's on crutches after the game. And it like breaks my heart. It's like, I love Wyatt. He's like my little brother. And like, the guy's out there trying to win a national championship and suffers an injury where he can't even walk after the game. And I'm just like, oh my God, like going into, when you play the national championship, like you're literally the last college football game. So then all of a sudden, you can't do your draft prep if you get hurt in that game. So, and he slipped in the draft. And I mean, Shaun Wade sunk like a rock in the draft. And again, if they would have just sat out like Micah Parsons and Jamar Chase and, it's less evaluation, they had great film from the year before. I mean, who knows? And again, that's like one of those things where you can't just kill yourself playing the what if game, but those guys cost themselves a lot. So again, it's not like some linear track where if you come back, your stock's going to go up. I mean, with DeJuan, I don't know. I mean, like maybe Kyle McCord holds the ball longer. I have no idea. But, I mean, he felt like it was time to go and he went. And I mean, DeJuan's been here for 4 years, which, it's I'm a little better with guys that have been here 4 years because they're kind of like the same year as a fourth year senior if they don't redshirt, as opposed to a 3-and-out guy. Because 3-and-out is tough, especially for a lineman. Luke Whippler was a 3-and-out. Paris is like an all galaxy talent though. And that kid's like a 35-year-old in a 20-year-old's body with his mentality and how he acts. So he's a little different. And Luke will be fine. Luke will do a good job for the Browns. Again, I think the thing I was most excited about, honestly, is that the Browns have Bill Callahan. And Bill Callahan is a world-class offensive line coach, and he is a really hard dude. So, I mean, DeJuan, better put down the spoon and put down the carbs, man, because Bill is going to be up his behind about the weight and making sure that he's on point because he's really good at what he does, and it's not because he's lovey-dovey and Mr. Caring guy. He's a tough guy. And it's like, for a guy like DeJuan, that's the best thing that could ever happen to him because he's worked with Trent Williams and Morgan Moses and some really good big tackles. And I think that's going to be really beneficial. Plus, they've got Jed Wills, who's, a fringe Pro Bowl guy. Conklin, makes a fortune. And this, they just gave him an extension, but I mean, he could be gone after a year or two. So it's kind of a good spot for DeJuan to be in because they have two veteran good tackles, and Jedrick Wills is going to get paid after this year. He's going to make a lot of money. So, I mean, DeJuan's got two good guys to learn from and an excellent O-line coach. So, hey, I mean, it could have been worse. I always worry about these guys when they go into the draft. Where do they end up? Who's coaching them? What are the veterans like? Because that all adds up. Like if you're on good veterans, it's awesome. If you're on guys that are turds, it sucks. If you're on good O-line coaches, it's great for a guy like DeJuan. So we'll take some questions as we're going through here. What's up, Paul? Get a lot of the regulars in here. Yeah, exactly. Like Jesse says, there's some guys in the league like Tyquan Lewis, Jalen Holmes. I think he might not be on a team right now, but he was in the team. He was in the league last year. But there's like I said, some of these guys, you never know who made the right decision until you look back 10 years later. And like we look at Noah Brown's decision, everyone's like he should have stayed, but he just signed with the Texans. He's, like he said, has been in the league for 6-7 years now, and he's made a bunch of money. So it's been good. And I think that the one thing that no one ever talks about is if you are Luke Whippler and you do end up starting for the Browns, like you're going to hit your second contract when you're like 24 years old because he is a 6th-round pick. So he's got a 4-year deal and then he's out. So, if you're good, you're going to get paid and you're going to be really young, which teams look at that when they're signing free agencies. They don't want to sign guys that are overage and you're paying for past production. So if Luke and DeJuan really lock it in, I mean, like Orlando Brown was kind of a 3rd-ish, 4th-roundish type pick for the Ravens, got paid a ton by the Bengals. Trent Brown, another supersized tackle, was a 7th-round pick for the 49ers. Got paid a ton by the Raiders. He's back with the Patriots now. So, if you put your head down for 3 years and you really lock in, you can make a ton of money to make up for the disappointment of draft day. The Browns picked up Hickman and Tanner McAllister. Those are two of the undrafted guys. But yeah, Nevada, any other draft thoughts? Any other teams that stood out to you? I think the Steelers, it's amazing how the Steelers just kill it in the draft. I mean, they get really good tackle, then they get Porter Jr., and then they get the big tight end from Georgia. Anything else stand out for you in the draft tonight?
No, I just think that, look, I always say teams, and this is true for any sport, for any team, teams are not good by accident, and teams are not bad by accident. It's a matter of culture and what they're doing. And I just think that the Patriots and the Steelers play the draft game as well as anybody. They just draft well, and that's why they've won so many Super Bowls. And that's like the way that New England consistently trades down and accumulates more draft capital, and then you see the dumb teams that are trading up and spending all the draft capital. Like I said, I thought I don't like the Steelers. In fact, I hated the Steelers so much during the 70s when they played the Browns. I mean, it was unnatural how much I hated the Steelers. I hated Jack Lambert more than you could ever hate a person that I'd never met. And but I got to tip my hat to them. They draft well, and I have a lot of respect for that organization and for their stability and the way that they find their head coaches and support them with the right type of players. So, no, I just thought the draft was just another hypothesis of good teams doing good things. And hey, maybe the Browns are starting to become one of those good teams. Maybe if they're building that new stadium in Cleveland and they got to play a couple of years in Columbus, having all those Ohio State players is not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know where Cam Brown went. Zach Harrison to Atlanta. I think that Zach Harrison's a guy that'll play 10 years in the league. Why is that? People are like, well, he didn't get the sack production. But there's guys that are like Zach. He'll get 4, 5, 6 sacks a year in the league. He'll be a good run defender. He's just a world-class citizen, great kid. I wish that DeJuan would have followed Zach's lead a little bit more, and Zach just kind of does everything right. He's just a good kid, and just a hard worker, but he just wasn't productive. Like that's his bugaboo is when you're that big and talented, you should be way more productive than you were. But there's a lot of guys that are like that. There's guys that stick around for 6, 7, 8 years that they get their 5, 6 sacks. They're good guys. They're team guys. So Zach's the kind of guy that's going to be like that. I mean, he's a big athlete. I think he still is pretty raw. He's got a lot of potential. So, teams are always, NFL coaches love them some potential, man. You get that 6'6" guy that runs a 4.6 40 and he's 280, 270. Like that's what they crave, because they're like, well, let's see if we could unlock what Larry Johnson couldn't and what Ohio State could. Let's see if we can unlock that freakiness. And honestly, I think Zach, he just plays too nice. Like he's not a nasty dude. I wish he was a little more nasty like JT Tuimoloau is. But I think that he's got upside. And again, like when you're an NFL team, like you need guys like Zach Harrison's that are just good, solid players, great citizens, and they're just not because if you take a turd, you need a couple Zach Harrisons to kind of even it all out. 'Cause you can't have a bunch of turds on your team, but I think Zach's gonna have a nice career. I really do. I know he's a disappointment to Ohio State fans just because of the 5-star rating, and I don't think it was fair that he came after Chase Young and Joey and Nick Bosa, who probably 3 of the best defensive ends in college football history. Top 3 picks, all 3 of them. So that's tough to follow. But again, I think there's a lot of guys that are like Zach that last 10 years in the league, and you look up and you're like, wow, he had a nice career, 50, 60 sacks, whatever tackles, stop the run, and away you go. But it's just interesting. The Browns are going to play in the shoe. No, the Browns are going to play in the shoe. I wish they'd play in the shoe. That'd be great. Cam Brown didn't get drafted. I don't know where he signed. I'm sure he signed somewhere. Yeah, like Cam Hayward's a guy who's been in the league forever. He was like the 30th pick of the draft, and he's on he's got to be on year 14 this year. So he's been in for a minute. But yeah,
but Kirk, to your point, look at that secondary. You got Cam Brown, Hickman, and McAllister. None of them drafted zero interceptions from the cornerback position last year. And so it's like, people wonder why we're like, why are you defending Knowles? Why are you not? I'm like, guys, you just have to be realistic. He didn't have a tremendous amount of talent to deal with last year. That was not a talented Ohio State defense last year. And, he managed to do some things with the linebacker room. I thought the linebacker room went from, team weakness to team strength in 1 year, but he did not have talented cornerbacks to deal with. And in today's college football, as pass happy as today's college football is, if you don't have elite cornerbacks, or at least really good cornerbacks in defensive secondary, you're not going to be very good. And so, we can only expect so much out. We talk about it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmys and Joes. He didn't have many Jimmys and Joes there in the defensive secondary. And the NFL draft just kind of proved that in abundance today. So I think that's why one of the reasons we're trying to give people to give Knowles a little bit more slack. Now this year, I think it's a little different. I think he's got some better players to work with. He's got some guys second year in the system, and I think we should expect more. But last year was a learning year, and a year where he didn't have a lot of ammo to deal with, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that when you've got three guys that are older guys, those weren't guys that declared early. Well, I mean, Ronnie did, but he was a 4th-year guy, declared early, and none of them get drafted. I mean, Cam Brown ran like a 4.7. His athletic score was terrible. So again, like, you don't have to say I'm being a meanie, because the NFL had 260 picks and they didn't pick any of those three guys. So that makes it hard. I mean, again, you need to have big time safeties, big time corners. And we didn't have that. I mean, really, we didn't have a big time defender. I mean, we didn't have that big time player anywhere on defense. I mean, like Tommy had a nice year. I think JT really needs to step his production up. Obviously, he had the massive Penn State game, but if you delete that game from the stat line, like, it's not much production for a guy that started all those games and who has all that talent. Jack Sawyer was completely misused last year. So again, there's a lot to be desired from a production standpoint. Like, some of the guys just need to go out and play better, because it's not like they're not getting snaps. And again, I think our back end, it has to be better this year. I think it will be better this year. Again, Davidson, I think, is going to push these guys. I think that we're deeper. Sonny Styles has to play. They got to play him somewhere. He's just too good not to play. So it's going to be fascinating. But yeah, it's like, the NFL draft is the ultimate litmus test for what the pros think of your guys. And when you get guys sliding and guys not getting picked, man, it's pretty obvious that they didn't think much of our back end. What do you in terms of the draft, again, we're at 490 kids drafted or whatever it is. What does this do for recruiting, Nevada? CJ Stroud's now the highest drafted quarterback in Ohio State history. Paris is obviously the highest since Orlando Pace, scoring 6 overall. Does it do anything? Is it a promotional vehicle? Does it get kids more juiced up? Seeing these, because again, we've had 3 quarterbacks go top 15, back to back to back. But what does that do for recruiting in your eyes if you're Ohio State and you're Ryan Day?
Well, I mean, to me, this goes to the core, and this is a really important distinction for people to understand. In the age of NIL, you've got kind of the NIL kids in NIL schools, and then hey, we're selling development, we're selling future NFL riches schools. And Ohio State is certainly in the latter category. That's what they're selling to kids. They're saying, hey, if you're looking for the best NIL offer, this is probably not the place for you. We'll be able to get you some money, but if you really want to make the big money, that's in the NFL, and that's what we're about. Well, this draft just kind of showed that again in abundance with another quarterback, with an offensive line, with another in the line of great wide receivers. So for Ohio State, the draft, this couldn't have been better. It couldn't have been better at an important time. And for what Ohio State's selling and how they're trying to sell it, this goes right to the heart of the matter. So this was a great NFL draft for that, and certainly something that's going to pay big dividends for them, not only this year but down the road as well.
I think that, it's going to keep the offensive train rolling again. Like, the defense is, again, everyone, for whatever reason, it's like there's a sect of this Ohio State group of supporters that they wake up every day and they're just scared of the offensive tackles for whatever reason. I'm like, guys, like, we need to find some corners. We need to find some guys that can cover some safeties. So it's like, I don't worry about the offensive line, because I think that it's easier to fix and hide on the offensive line if you've got a guy that maybe is young and you gotta protect him a little bit. Again, I think back to like Taylor Decker in 2013. He had that terrible first game against a guy that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer in all likelihood. In Mac, who was just unbelievably good. A guy from Buffalo who nobody had heard of. I'd heard of him, and I literally texted the thing to Urban. I said, "Hey, this guy's projected to be a first round pick. I know he plays in the Mac, and that usually doesn't happen. So make sure you guys watch tape on this guy because he might." And then I remember watching that game. I was literally sitting in the athletic director's suite. I was like, this guy's really good. And then all of a sudden, like he had the greatest game in maybe in the history of Ohio Stadium for a defensive player. Cause I mean, he had it was like an interception, a fumble, sack fumble, touchdown. I mean, it was just like, it was like he was like a Madden player or something. But, like
But
when
Kirk,
you've got a go ahead.
Kirk, but Kirk, to that point, you're a right tackle. We're talking about the right tackle position specifically.
Yeah.
How many games this year are just take any of those guys? Take Zen, take George, take Tegra. Based upon what you've seen, how many games are we going to play this year where they're going to line up against a defensive end that's much better than they are, or better than players that they practice against in practice every day?
None. I mean, until we get to Georgia and Bama, until we get to the playoffs, none. I'm just telling you, because like when they go against JT and Jack every day, those guys are two of the top 5 or 6 DNs. So, there's nobody in our league that is markedly better than those guys. Like nobody. So, I don't know. For me, I think that's the thing that people don't get is like, look, those guys are going to have 30 practices versus those guys in fall camp. And again, it's gonna be heated up. I mean, Ryan Day, he knows that, hey, these guys got to get game ready. They're not game ready yet. So, there's got a lot of heat on Justin Fries, a lot of heat on the GA. I've sat in that seat where, we had to make Reed Fragel into a starting right tackle. Reed Fragel never played tackle in his entire life. He's been a tight end his entire life. So, we had to turn him into a tackle. So he had to learn how to vertical set, pass set, learn the offense, and so that requires 26 hours a day, basically, of making sure Reed is up to speed. You got to find every little bit of time to try to make sure that he's as good as he can be. And it ended up working out. And Reed, who'd never played tackle in his life, ended up getting drafted in the 7th round. So, if you put in enough work, and again, because I've said it a million times, and I love Justin Fry. I mean, he's a guy that I've known for a long time. But, you don't get paid to coach Paris Johnson and DeJuan. You get paid to coach like the Zens and some of these other guys, some of these guys that, when you walk into Paris Johnson and he's like a cyborg of pass protection, like that's easy. Like my German Shepherd could coach Paris Johnson. Like it's not that hard. He's just he's a great kid, real steady kid, super athletic, wants to be great. Like he's got all the attributes, which is why he went 6 overall. You got to coach DeWand a lot because he's a project. He's a kid that didn't even play football sophomore year of high school. So, I mean, he's a raw dude. But most of these guys, you get paid to coach Reed Fragel, like a guy that's never played tackle, you got to turn him into a tackle. That's where you earn your money and your respect as a coach, is when you have to make these guys play at a level higher than they are accustomed to. So, I think, but it's going to be interesting. Like I said, it's a big fall camp. I think it's exciting to see these guys get after each other. And, again, I've been in these battles. Like I was in a battle with Tim Schafer and TJ Downing, and I initially lost 6. I was hurt during spring. And then I started camp and I was with the 2s, and, and again, you just got to keep fighting. Cause again, like by week 5, I was the starter, cause I started rotating in, I started playing better than Schafe, and then Schafe got destroyed in a couple games, and then they just made me the full-time starter because I was actually grading out higher than he was. So, again, I tell these guys that aren't starting, I'm like, look, guys, you're one ACL away from being the guy. And, if you're in a competition, like the competition doesn't end, it's not like it's a race where you run through the tape and after you run through the tape, it's over. Like the competition goes all season at these positions. So if Zen is the day 1 starter at right tackle, if I'm Tigra, man, I'm living in the Woody Hayes, working out 3 times a day, getting treatment, just going crazy to try to figure out how I can take that job from him so I can perform better. So I don't know, but that's kind of what it takes to be a starter at Ohio State. And if you are the starter, you better be putting in more work than the guy who's trying to take your spot. Because when you're the starter, man, everyone behind you wants to take your spot. That's what they came here for. They didn't come here to sit there and watch you play. So, but that's my sermon. But yeah, I don't know. I really like that. That we've got competition. I think if we get the kid from San Diego State, I mean, I'd welcome him. I don't think he's a superstar by any stretch, but I think he's got some tools, and if he likes Justin Frye, that's great. But I don't think he's a cinch. Move everybody out of the first spot and lock him in there. I think he's a guy that'd be added to the competition, and I would welcome that because I think you need more competition, and competition is never a bad thing, especially as summer conditioning starts because everybody wants to beat everything who's competing with everybody. So I think it's going to be some good stuff. Well, Nevada, we've God, that's almost an hour. Jeez. What other thoughts do you have? I'm going to save the line back for tomorrow. We're going to break down Kingston Viamalu Asa from St. John Bosco. I think that we should call this Bosco Scoops, since we seem to break down a guy from Bosco every week now. But he's a guy that loves James Laurinaitis. He announced his final three is USC, us, and Notre Dame. I think we got a shot here, but Mom likes Notre Dame, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. So we're going to break him down tomorrow. But any questions in the chat, guys? Fire these questions up. Shout out where you guys are from too. Yeah, Sean Wade I think he's still a Patriot. But yeah, any other thoughts about it? Like I said, this is a loaded weekend. I wasn't planning on doing a bunch of recruiting stuff tonight, but hey, it's what happens when you're on the scoop.
Yeah, no, I think it's the tackle from San Diego State's kind of an interesting one for me because we took the transfer from Louisiana Tech, Cutler, and he's not ready for prime time yet. And so I'm a little, I'm not sure how many times you can do that and have it be a good thing for your team. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like if I don't think you can do that multiple times. So I hope that he's better than that because that first one didn't work out so well. And people just think it's not just that you bring a guy in. You bring a guy in that chips away a little bit away from the kind of the cohesiveness and the whole the brotherhood and everything because you're bringing this guy in. The idea people say, oh, they do that all the time, but recruiting's kind of different than bringing in transfers. And
Yeah,
I'm all for transfers as long as they can play. So
yeah,
just don't do it if it's not somebody who's not going to be a Jonah Jackson or a Trey Sermon or a Justin Fields. Don't just do it to do it because I think that can destroy your culture and I think that can create problems for you. So I truly hope like that. I think he's from what I see, he looks like a depth piece and a guy that could be in the mix. And like I said, if he jumps in and he grabs the job, that's just great for all of us. So
great.
I think we'll know a lot more about that in the next 24 hours, whether or not he's going to be a Buckeye. We'll see what he's about. And like you said, having Paris Johnson taken as high as he was certainly, is attractive to any offensive lineman. And Justin does have a pre-existing relationship. So that might be good enough to carry the day.
Yeah. So here's some Utah film. Again, I like the movement. Again, here's Utah's probably the best team on this film, but I don't know. I mean, I think he's okay. Like I said, I don't think obviously he's not a world beater, but he's a guy that would be in the competition, but he's not a guy that you just give the job to, in my opinion. And I watched a lot of offensive line tape, and again, it's nice to actually be able to watch some college tape instead of it being all high school stuff, old high school stuff. But he's like I said, he's got some tools. I think he's got to get stronger, obviously, because he doesn't have like a super muscular physique. Like you look at photos of him, he's a little doughy, but I think he's got a chance. And again, but would it hurt to have some depth? Yeah, of course. I mean, we just had Ben Christman just walked out the door. So you lose 3 in the draft and then you lose 1 in the portal. I mean, you gotta bring in a transfer guy. Like that's the thing that people they say, oh, we're short in recruiting. I'm like, well, yeah, when you have 4 guys declare early in 2 years, you're gonna be short. When you have guys portal out like Ryan Jacoby, Max Ray, Ben Christman, you're gonna be short. This is math, guys. It's not that hard. So I think this is going to end up being a 6-0 line class. Hopefully we'll get a couple of these national guys that we're all over. But yeah, like I said, this kid's got some movement skills. My biggest question is why does he play left tackle? If he's such a good tackle and his feet are so good, like why does he play on the left side? So, and again, that's not a knock. I just they might have a 4-year start at left tackle. I just don't know about it. But I just want to throw some film on here because I've watched him and. I like I said, I think that the movement skills they're there. They're good, but he's blocking. He's not blocking JT Tuimoloau in these one-on-one pass rush clips. He's blocking guys from San Diego State that, frankly, I played San Diego State. And it's kind of like it's kind of a joke, So it's a different level. You see him lock down these guys, but these guys would never likely play at Ohio State, or they'd be deep backups. So they're basically kind of like a MAC team. So there's nothing wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the same as blocking JT and Jack every day. But like I said, it'll be interesting to see if we get him. Again, I always am kind of wary of the West Coast kids because I always feel like if SC comes through, that's where they dream of going to. He's from Helix, which is where Alex Smith and Reggie Bush are from. So those kids that are from Helix, they don't dream of being Buckeyes. They dream of being Trojans. So, but again, we'll see. Again, I'd take the kid, but he's not good enough to just push everybody out of the way and make him the guy. Let's see if we got any other questions. Who represents Jones and Whippler? Jones is with Clutch Sports. That's LeBron's group. Whippler, I'm not sure. Like I said with DeJuan, I just don't know who was advising him, because I'd have told him, dude, like, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to whatever, but I mean, he could have done a lot of stuff a lot better through the process. But he's got a home now. He's 4th-round pick of the Browns. But I mean, I just think that he could have been a 1st-round pick if he did the process correctly. Does Hartline's recent issues take away potential responsibility that he may or Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? I don't think so. Because it's kind of just gone away and been swept under the rug. But what are your thoughts on that?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, that again, Ohio State just wants that whole issue to go away. They don't want to talk about it anymore. They don't want to hear about it anymore. And as we've mentioned before, for Brian, hopefully this is a wake up call to kind of realize you can't be involved in that type of shenanigans anymore, and especially if you want to be a head coach. That like you can get away with it now because you're still the position coach. You haven't been the offensive coordinator. You're not as high profile. Can you imagine if that was Ryan Day doing that? That'd be a real problem. So hopefully it's a wake up call. Hopefully it's sometimes these things happen, and it's the best for all involved. And I'm hoping that's the outcome for Brian.
Yeah. Anyone worried about McCord? I don't know if worried is the right word. I just, anytime you have a new quarterback in the mix, you gotta go out and prove you can play. I mean, I've been a part of new quarterbacks that are seamless, and I've been a part of new quarterbacks that the backups were better than, like clearly better than. And then you just hope that the coaching staff is smart enough to put the backup in, and then they become, then we take flight. But sometimes the coaches don't even start the right guy. So I think Devin Brown is a really good player. I think he's a fantastic athlete. And I think it's going to be a fierce competition. I would be shocked if he starts game 1, just because of, I think that, Kyle will be in the portal before, halftime. But your thoughts on McCord, Nevada, after spring as we get into summer?
Well, I just think what people should do is go back and watch tape of Justin Fields in the spring game, or go back last year and watch tape of CJ Stroud in the spring game, and watch those guys and see if anything about their play screamed franchise quarterback for the Bears or 2nd overall pick. I mean, the spring game is just it's. I mean, Fields could not have looked worse. He couldn't have looked worse. He was horrible, absolutely. And CJ was just a guy last year, like really, 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 really average in the spring game. So I just don't think people, I have some concerns, but my concerns are only based on the fact that we just don't have enough to see, because I don't think Ryan Day played at McCord enough in backup duty, and I think that goes for all the backups. I've said that before. I've said it loudly. I think that, for whatever reason, whether it was stat padding or whatever they're trying to do, I don't think they got the backups enough snaps. And so I think that I've got questions about McCord just because we haven't seen enough of him to answer those questions. But don't base questions about McCord. Don't base questions about the tackles, or anything on the spring game, because the spring game is just designed to make certain people look bad. And offensive tackles and quarterbacks can look really bad. And if you just need proof of that, like I said, go back and watch. I think Jack Sawyer had 3 or 4 sacks last year in the spring game, and then had 4 sacks for the whole year. Well, so don't draw too many conclusions off of the spring game because you can get misled very, very easily.
Solomon Thomas had 7 sacks in the spring game the one year. 7. Like Derek Thomas,
Yeah.
like 7 sacks. And like, I don't know if he had one in his career. I mean, Solomon, obviously had the pick against Arkansas, but like Solomon was just a guy. I mean, he was just a guy, a nice kid, but he was just a guy. He was never a guy that anyone was scared of in the pass rush. But in a spring game, he had 7 sacks. So again, it just proves how, I guess, worthless it is. It's kind of like judging, if you pick your fantasy team off who are the best players in preseason NFL football, you're like, oh, this running back from the Eagles that played in the fourth quarter had an 80-yard touchdown and, 50 more yards, and I'm going to take him in the first round because he's, some fifth string guy that's playing out the string of the end of the preseason. So again, I don't worry about it just because, I know that our offense, I mean, I literally talked to the coaches at Ohio State after the game. And they're literally like, they hate the spring game. It's for the fans. It's an exhibition, but they hate it because they can't. It's like they're handcuffed. They can't call their defense. They can't call their offense, and it's just like this big mash of just vanilla pudding, And like those coaches just can't stand it. They can't adjust. They can't make substitutions. They're running. They don't have their best players. So, if you're the play caller and you don't have, okay, Marvin gets to play 4 plays, and Emeka's not playing, and Trey's not playing, and Mayan's not playing, and Josh Farr's playing 1 drive, and like it sucks, because then you got to try to mix it up with a bunch of guys that probably aren't going to be playing much. So again, I think it's funny. And again, I went to the 2002 spring game after the immortal 7-5 season that Tressel opened up his tenure with. And the final score was 6-3, and they played a full game, and it was 6-3. So, and then they go on to win the national championship. They go 14-0, probably had the greatest season in Ohio State history. Beat the Miami Hurricanes. So, again, it was 6-3 at the spring game. It was the most boring football game I literally have ever seen in my life, and it turned into the greatest season in Ohio State history. So, just for you guys that are late, we got Jordan Lyle. He's a 4-star running back out of St. Thomas Aquinas. He committed, and Lorenzo Salles Jr. has formally committed. We had that last week. Obviously, we had that first, like usual. But it was really a great night for the Bucs. I thought we were going to get on talk draft, and it turned into a big recruiting episode. So, but we're going to wrap this. Nevada, you got any final thoughts as we lock down NFL draft weekend and a couple of nice commitments?
Yeah, I don't think we're done with commitments. I think stay tuned on commitments. And as I led this thing off, our Buckeye Scoop betting thread has been on fire. Hit another huge hammer bet tonight. If you're on the thread, you know what I'm talking about. But that is literally, we're giving away free money right now. So if you're not taking advantage of that, do take advantage of that. Sports gambling is legal in the state of Ohio right now. So you can do it from the comfort of your own home, and you can pay for your annual subscription in one bet. So it's pretty exciting because this was a good one. This was, not only did we hit the win prop, but we hit the prop on the fight to go to decision. So big night for Dagestan Poppy, big night for Buckeye Scoop.
Yeah, that's something like people don't realize. Like obviously, we've got the inside goods for Ohio State football, but our gambling thread is an ATM machine. It's been awesome. So if you guys are into that at all, if you guys are in DraftKings or any of that, you can tell these bets. We've got really, really sophisticated handicappers doing their thing right now. And you can look at their monthly, what they've been doing. Like this is tracked action. This isn't just some random thing that pops up. Like the last 13 months have just been absolute craziness. So if you guys are into gambling, BuckeyeScoop.com, your new home. Any final thoughts, Nevada?
Nope, just stay tuned for some more commitment because I think I have a sneaking suspicion one may be breaking pretty shortly.
I love that. I'll take this last question because I like this one. Laurinaitis and Salles Jr. help against Notre Dame? I think a little bit. I think James will know the defense. I'm sure the signals will all be different, but it never hurts personnel-wise to have a guy like James come over because he knows the offensive and defensive players, who to attack. Obviously, Salles Jr. He'll know the defense, but again, they'll have different signals. So I'd say it'd be minor, but I'm sure that if I was Ryan Day, I'd make James the head coach of the Notre Dame game because Urban used to do that. He used to assign each game to a different position coach, and like Luke Fickell would be the head coach of the Wisconsin game. Ed Warner would be the head coach of the Cal game, and you have to give kind of the presentation in the summer of this is what Cal does, this is who they are. And you usually do like the first 4 to 6 games. You don't do all of them. You do Michigan obviously every year, but because by week 6, I mean teams can be completely different, so you don't want to waste too much time in the summer. But I think that's a fantastic question, and I appreciate that. Again, your questions really help the show. We really appreciate that. Thank you guys for bringing the heat on the questions. So I think we're good, Nevada. You good?
I'm good. Great
All right.
night. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Let's wrap this show up. Appreciate you guys as always. You guys, again, this has been a fantastic show. Great night for the Buckeyes. 2 new commits: Lorenzo Sales Jr., Jordan Lyle out of St. Thomas Aquinas, 4-star running back. So huge night. Again, if you guys are gamblers, our gambling thread is crazy. I don't promote it enough, I don't think, but it's awesome and we are on fire. But there's going to be some more commitments coming, so get on BuckeyeScoop.com. I'm about to log in, do another article on the draft. I wrote a really big article about what I thought about Paris, what I thought about CJ, the landing spots. Yes, I'm going to do a little bit on Dewan, a little bit on Luke, and just kind of give my 2 cents. But Bill the Bank Green's been all over the board today. Nevada, breaking inside stuff. It's been a great day on BuckeyeScoop.com. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for your awesome questions. Shout out where you guys are from. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please leave us a like. Click subscribe. And again, I know people get upset when they don't know what time the show comes on because sometimes it's different based on our schedules, but get that little alert button. There's a little bell. You click on it. You get a little notification of your live. So you guys can always ask us questions, always get the good stuff. So appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you guys. If you guys want some more goods, get on BuckeyeScoop.com. I'm heading on there now. Going to be on there all night. Great night of hockey and some great sports going on. So we're going to be going all night on the Scoop, talking draft recaps, new recruiting stuff. These visits are wrapping up, so it's going to be a good night on Scoop. So thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.